Hello, everyone. Hey,
Yay!
if you
Hi.
are here, you are on the GeekGirlCon channel, and we are here for Sabers and Sashes, a Star Wars costuming panel. Yay! I'll have
Woo!
everyone introduce themselves quickly. And I'll start. My name's Anabel, and I am the marketing director for GeekGirlCon. And I've always been hugely passionate about cosplay and Star Wars cosplay. So I volunteered to hop on and bring on some amazing guests to do a panel and just kind of cover everything about cosplay, from beginners to people who are already into cosplay but might have questions or just want to hear some other cosplays talk about their experiences. So I'll kick it off and say, for all of you, not only who you are and how you got into it, but why do you cosplay? So on my screen, let me see it. I was here on the channel. Oh, Amber comes after me. So Amber, if you'd like to go first, then Torrey and Heather.
All
Oh,
right.
and also
Hi,
introduce your
everyone.
pronouns. Sorry.
I am Amber Brite, pronouns she, her. I am a professional prop maker here in Phoenix, in Arizona. I'm kind of I'm the only one in the desert. But yeah, Phoenix strong here. And I've been cosplaying for, oh my God, I think 13 years. Usually I have Sam to talk about how long she's doing cosplay, and then I just add a year to her because I'm always streaming with Sam. So whatever Thermo cosplay says, like +1 to her. I think it's like 13. I never know. She's always like, I know exactly how long. And I'm like, yes, me +1. But I primarily do Star Wars cosplay. I also do some video game cosplay, as well as some very, very niche anime cosplay, which is always fun. And I love the challenge of building things that you see in movies that are almost always CGI, or have a whole team to create that. I think it's very cool that I can look at a movie and recreate that for myself, and the challenge of that, and kind of all the crazy skills I've developed just doing that, like casting and molding and all these like crazy things. There's always something new to learn, and it's always a fun challenge.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And
Cool.
Torrey.
I'm Torrey Stenmark, she, her. I've been cosplaying since I was in college. And the very first real, like, I learned to sew when I was younger. I did Ren Fair stuff when I was younger, but my very first cosplay was a Padme Amidala costume, and I've been doing Star Wars stuff ever since. I do a lot of Star Wars stuff, but I also do a lot of superhero stuff. I do some Trek, I do some fantasy, I do other sci-fi, really, really whatever. If I fall in love with the thing, then I will cosplay the thing, is really what it is. Because that's like, I love, like, you know, what Amber was saying about, you know, new skills and stuff is part of it. It's really fun and interesting, but really, if I don't love the character, I'll never finish it. Like, I've got some unfinished projects, and that's why I didn't. Is I was just like, it's a cool project and idea, but I'm just not that into it.
Mm.
But when it comes to something that I love, I just love doing that. And the Star Wars stuff has the fun advantage. I'm wearing some of my merch. I'm a member of I think 3 different Star Wars charity costume clubs, which means we get to dress up as Star Wars characters and do things like hospital visits and sports game nights and stuff to really sort of bring joy and raise money for children's charities. So yeah, it's fun.
I think you're muted, Heather.
Am I?
Yes,
Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you now.
Okay.
Yay.
My name is Heather Robb. I am one half of the artists of sionnoch.studios, the other half being my husband, Will. Together, we create a lot of costumes, from live action, all kinds of stuff. And it's not just sequestered to the Star Wars universe, although lately, the last few years of our lives have been very Star Wars aligned, for lack of a better phrase. Part of the reason that I got into this at all is I learned how to sew when I was quite young, and I really loved it, and I was just good with my hands. So it was something I could do with my hands that I was really great at, and just followed that. And it really got to go further when I was in high school and found Ren fairs. So Ren fairs are really where I started, and just loved the idea of garment construction and the puzzle that that presents. And Star Wars costumes are the ultimate puzzles. So
Mhm.
my path has naturally led me down to the dark side of the forest there. But I've been cosplaying for, oh gosh. I mean, if you want to count Ren fairs, then it's like 20 years.
Ren fairs absolutely count, I say.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Then I've been into this for a long time, but I've only been seriously cosplaying for about the last 7.
Nice. Like having a cosplay name and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played around with the whole personality thing, but I find that I really like being the creator as part of a team better. So really
nice.
Yeah.
So a lot of you touch on part of what you love about cosplay is just the skills you acquire. So for myself, because I'm curious as well, but also for people watching, what skills have you acquired? What do you focus most on when building, from like sewing to resin work to, what are your skill sets in cosplay that you really have kind of pursued?
For me, it's so much the molding and casting. The ability to take something and then like recreate it in like resin with these like crazy molds. And I do a lot of like headpieces. So I work with a lot of foam and silicone and such like that. So it's very cool. You see like Face Off and you see like behind the scenes of like all these molds and all these contraptions. And that makes sense to me now. Like I get to look at that and be like, oh, I know how. And my favorite is actually Discovery has an aquarium show that they build aquariums. I'm blanking on the name, but like it's an aquarium show and it's fun to look at it and be like, I recognize those smooth on products. Like I know exactly what you're
right. It's kind of demystified Hollywood just a little bit.
Yeah. You're like, you can turn that bottle around, but I know what the label says. Like, and they're like,
right?
Oh, we gotta like check the humidity in here and such. And I'm like, yep. So that's been the most fun one for me, is just like the mystical art of taking a clay sculpture and making it into prettiness. And I mean, it's cool. It's very cool.
I've gotten to focus a lot on my craftsmanship lately. So as I've done commissions and had to like repeatedly do the same costume over and over again, cough, Bo-Katan. I have clothed so many Bo-Katans, and I'm like equally proud of that, and kind of like, oh, why did
you recognize them immediately in like a crowd photo?
I do. It's weird. So like I'm not in Anaheim right now, but a lot of my work is so
you're basically there.
Spirit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been I get to focus on my craftsmanship, and so I've learned so much about what goes into the garment, how structure is important, where that structure belongs, and just a lot of it is I'm a self-taught seamstress myself, so a lot of my knowledge has holes in it and stuff like that, where I've missed like a formal education in some of this stuff. So I find reference material everywhere. I have these big books behind me you can't see, but they're on these shelves back here, and I reference them all the time, and that's been one of my favorite skills that I've learned.
And I think people don't realize, but like sewing something for yourself and sewing something for somebody else, those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Like I can sew for myself just fine, but like I can't make something that goes on someone else's body. Like that's a completely different skill set.
That's been
like,
a learning curve. Yeah. That was a cliff I felt like I was pushed over.
Yep.
gently slid down the hill. No, I just ran right off like a lemming. It was
I think I did like 6 sewing commissions and I was like, nope, nah, son. Like people's bodies are weird. Like I can't do this.
It can be really
like,
challenging, and that's been an interesting learning curve to kind of get over. It's not been a pleasant one, so I can't. But I have learned so much from it, and now I understand so much about garments that I feel like I've really leveled myself up as an artist, as a human, and just as a business person who does this for a living. So
And I feel like when you do stuff for yourself, you can cut corners or like glue stuff or do all these little hidden tricks. You can't do that for others. You can't say like, hey, here's all this hidden stuff I glued in there.
Right. I mean, I recently, this isn't Star Wars, but I literally literally 2 days ago just finished a wedding ensemble suit thing for our nephew, who, you know, I typically am like, nope, I'm not going to do weddings, man. That's like a level of anxiety that I just don't want. But we took this on and we did it, and I did it in time and actually a week ahead of schedule. So, but I did more hand sewing in that one project and more like couture, like methods and practices, and just like putting a whole bunch of practice into those skills. It's incredible. Like I had the most fun just doing that.
Nice. Yeah, you reminded me a little bit, Heather, of talking about Ren Fair and historical garments and construction, of how much crossover there is between historical garment design and technique and Star Wars costume design and technique.
There's a lot of historical references and influences throughout the entire thing. A lot of Eastern references, especially with the obies and the really, Eastern styled like kimono and things of that nature first. So definitely there's a whole bunch of historical.
And Amidala's wardrobe pulls from all kinds of different cultures: Native American, various African cultures, Chinese and Japanese and Korean, and just all over the place. Yeah. I would say my technique, like my primary skill set, is sewing. My mom taught me how to sew when I was a kid, and I've been doing that kind of thing pretty much ever since. So fabric craft is my favorite. I also really love dyeing fabric. I'm an organic chemist in my day job, and so it's the application of my day job to my hobby, or vice versa, which I've done both, and it's really fun. But my very first dye job project was Padme Amidala's rainbow sherbet lake gown, that ombre. First thing, I think I did like one solid color project because I was like, I should start with something, and then that was the first big thing I did. And I'm still wearing it.
Like crepe chiffon too, like stuff that rips if you sneeze at it the wrong way, like
the sneaky stuff.
Yeah. Because I looked at that, I was like, maybe not.
I'm very careful about when and where I wear it. Like, I'm bringing it to Celebration this week, but I'm very careful about the train on that one. And I
do have handlers, hopefully.
No, probably not.
No.
I'm going with
on your arm, just like, don't touch me.
Pretty much. Let it down for the photos and the real special stuff, and otherwise it's just drape it delicately over one arm.
I have my list of questions on the side in case you can't tell. I'm like, honestly, one that you all have already touched on is your involvement with different groups, especially like unofficial groups as well, because I know a lot of people want to join, but it takes a caliber of work within they're called CRLs, right, to get approved within a costume club. So a lot of people will do unofficial clubs. So which official and unofficial groups are you a part of for Star Wars costuming that have helped you and that you have loved supporting? And go in any order, whatever feels organic. Not very formal with this.
Yeah. Are the rest of y'all official club members, or?
I am part of Rebel Legion. I know that for my armor.
Mando Mercs.
And for my Bo-Katan, yeah.
Then go ahead. I just want to make sure somebody touched on those.
My baby. I'm the Nautilin Mandalorian who is flavor
really
of love.
It's so gorgeous.
I've lost track of how many Star Wars clubs there are for the official ones, but there's still like the 5 main ones, I'm assuming. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm only in Rebel Legion at this point, although Will may tell me differently later and say I was wrong. I don't remember, honestly.
There are 7 official clubs. The big ones are the 501st for the bad guys and the Rebel Legion for the good guys, Mando Mercs for the Mandalorians, Saber Guild for when you want to hit people with lightsabers and do choreographed.
I didn't know that was official.
Like fights. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We have the most fun. That's what I'm doing. That's my primary focus, particularly right now, because we're about to perform on Friday at Celebration.
Good luck.
Saber Guild is for hitting people with choreographed sticks. We don't do live duels. Dark Empire is for original Sith and smugglers. The Droid Builders
I
are
love the droid
for
builders.
droids, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then the last one is the Galactic Academy, which is the kids club.
Oh, cool.
I've
Which
never
is
heard of Galactic Academy. I'm like taking notes
that's the
because
first time. Yeah, me too. I'm like, oh, that's the kids club, huh?
It is
because I hear so many kids who want to join, but I'm
Right.
very glad there's age restrictions in like the official groups for the most part because I know there's like some caveats if their parent is an official member and can monitor their children, but I'm glad that there's a more focused group because I get that question a lot. Like my 8-year-old loves Star Wars, and I'm like, in hospital visits and all that kind of thing, it could be tricky.
Right.
You don't want to put kids in those environments because they're still kids and you want to keep things safe for them. So that's really
Exactly.
cool.
And I think that's one of those things that people forget is that the clubs have a purpose. They're not just like you're going to conventions and you want like, they're not like a bragging right. Like it's this weird thing where some people are like, oh, well, I'm going to get official. And I'm like, okay, but like the clubs are there for a purpose, and that purpose is to do charity work. It's not a bragging right. It's not a rite of passage or anything like that. If all you want to do is go to conventions, like the clubs are not there for that. I mean, they're
not there for free passes or things.
Yeah.
They're there for good causes and to learn together
So-
and have a good cause together. Yeah.
And I hear that with people who are like, oh, the clubs are too strict, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I'm like, well, then don't get official. Like it's fine. Like it's not required. They're strict because they are representing this IP in places like hospitals and schools and official events and stuff like that. So I think there's a very interesting kind of assumption in Star Wars cosplay that everyone gets official. And that's kind of one of those things where I'm like, you don't need to, and you shouldn't unless you are there for the purpose of the club. Which
I
is
know
a
there
very
are some. Yeah, I know there are some clubs out there that are a little less focused on that, and are a little bit more focused on just the casual side of Star Wars cosplay, and so don't have as rigorous or restrictive CRLs for certain costumes and stuff like that, and so make it a little bit more accessible for folks who want to be more casual about it. But those groups are really there to be, as Amber points out, like super charity focused, and they want to be good representatives of this whole franchise.
There's a difference between charity groups and like social groups, like the Twi'lek group that meets up and stuff like that. That's a social group, as opposed to the official clubs, which are charity groups. So
yeah,
there's
go ahead.
There's nothing wrong with just having fun. There's nothing wrong with putting on a bathrobe and being like, I'm a Jedi Knight. Look, I have a, cardboard tube that I painted green. Go with that. Have fun. Like I will never judge anyone for doing that.
There is there's no rule book that says you have to be part of one of these clubs in order to be a valid cosplayer or a Star Wars fan. Like just
my main costume, my Twi'lek OOC, the Rio with the blue skin and stuff like that, she's not official for multiple reasons. One of it being like, I just want to do whatever I want to do.
You'll have full autonomy over her because of that. Yeah. She's her character. You can have fun in any manner you want.
Like, I want her armor to look whatever way I want it to look. I don't want it to look like CRLs. And obviously I built my Mandalorian and got approved so I can build the CRLs, but like that wasn't the point of Rio. So like, it's valid to be like, I want to stick with Star Wars canon, and it's valid to be like, I just want to do something cray-cray,
And I feel like there's
more towards the cray-cray end these days.
And I feel like there's been a transition because I started in the Mercs and I saw mainly the rosy side of it. But then, as we all know, there's ups and downs, especially when clubs grow to a certain size. And I started to see a lot of like kind of the toxic side, from the gatekeeping to some club members being really toxic for those who weren't official, like they were like a lower status cosplayer because of it. But I feel like now that like it's not perfect right now, nothing will ever be, because again, they're huge groups, but I feel like now it's easier to be more outspoken when things go wrong or certain members are starting to show those toxic sensitivities. So especially like it's going to be a journey, and I feel like some people might be scared from becoming official. And for me, I have always found that, especially when I got intimidated away from wanting to join official groups, like Facebook groups have been a really good escape. Like Rogue One came out, my husband fell in love with it, and I was roped in, and because I fell in love with like the ragtag kind of like triple rebel looks. And then I saw that like in the group, it's like it's a fun social group. But a few of the members are like, we'd love to tweak our kits to get it official. And it was never like, oh, so now they're like those guys. It was like, oh, that's really cool. If you want something for your comfort, you can get this item. If you want something official, here's the resources we know. And I feel like it's become more of that, where the groups are supporting each other versus just now like, here's the official groups. And oh, here's a Facebook group for those who can't be official. Now they feed off each other, because I'm sure official people also want their break doing casual stuff too, because you don't always want a troop, you know, in order, or doing events and all these kind of things. Sometimes you just want to like show up with a few friends and be nerds. So
or like this costume here is not it's grandfathered into the Rebel Legion, but they've changed the rules. I can't wear it anymore because it's based on a movie poster. It's not, so it's white, right? You can recognize the Leia shape of the belt, but it's not from the movies. It's from that classic movie poster, you know, the one where Luke's doing this and she's kneeling with the blaster.
So it's technically a canon costume on a poster, but not canon.
Yeah, but the Rebel Legion wants to be able to have a full turnaround. They want to see the front and back of whatever costume you're doing, so they can make sure that all parts of you look correct. And that costume has one painted image of it. So I ended up not having room in my schedule for it for celebration this year, but whenever the next one is, I'm definitely going to bring it because it's fun and I love it and I'm really proud of it. It's no longer club appropriate really. And also the slits are to about mid-thigh, and they not incorrectly occasionally point out that I should perhaps be a little more family friendly with it. There are places where you're, you know, even though Hut Slayer Leia is absolutely canon, they're like, I would prefer you did not wear that in a children's hospital, thank you. And I get that, like they're allowed to say that, so yeah.
Speaking of that, like the no 360 turnarounds, from my own experience doing cosplay, sometimes it's been a nightmare, like pausing movies for screenshots and trying to find what accurate colors, this or that. Do you have any fun examples of when you guys have had to investigate a cosplay for some character you just saw or was failed? And I see some laughing. I'll let you guys
trailer.
Anabel, that is every single bill.
Yeah.
And Marvel is like cosplay trauma. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That is every build, and especially because we're doing this for other people mostly. There's kind of adjacently to your previous question and leading into this one as well, is that, you know, one thing we run into and have to do and make sure that we say blanket across all of our websites is that we can't guarantee any of the club approvals. So as an artist who does these as commissions, when you're going out there and getting a commission from somebody that you want to eventually have some like club approval for, that's on you. We're going to make you a costume that's as screen accurate as we can get, but if your CRL leader or your troop leader comes back to you and says, you know, this isn't quite right, we'd like you to change a few things before we approve this, those changes are on you.
Yeah.
I feel like information can change moment by moment.
Right? And that's the thing. The thing is that it's also regional, and there are these little secular groups within the greater body of these clubs. And so all of these approval processes that they go through are very subjective.
We're working on it.
Yeah. One group may have a lot of like really like nitpicky type of things that they might have you go through, while another group will be a little bit more lax in their approval process. So it's so subjective that as a commission artist, you can never really guarantee that any costume you create is going to be club approved in any capacity. But with that comes a whole lot of down these rabbit hole of like, okay, well, sometimes we'll go to a CRL to kind of follow what they've initially, like what kind of think tank like gathering those folks have done, and kind of crowdsource it a little bit. But then we're also going down this deep rabbit hole of looking at pixelated pictures, trying to figure out details and
it goes back. Yeah, it goes back to like the prevalent use of CGI as well. Like this is one of those big things with Marvel, is like most of the costumes that you see on those superheroes don't actually exist anywhere. They're all CGI.
Exactly.
So we're building what they just had a computer put up. So like, even like, I know one of my friends was trying to build like a screen accurate like Thor from the first movie, and like depending on which frame, like the overlay was different because it was different CGI models and different posts. And we don't see that as much in Star Wars, I think, since it's a lot more practical effects and there is that kind of expectation that we're going to see it. But it's still something that you have to like contend with, that that in the movie may not exist anymore. Like
Well, there's also stunt doubles. So an important thing to point out is that most of these movies, especially these Star Wars characters, have a stunt double or several that they're using. Fennec back here has like 5.
Yeah.
So depending upon who's wearing it, it looks different. It fits different. It's going to move different. So you kind of have to extrapolate between all these different sources to try and find what the right thing is going to be.
Isn't there like a frame on The Mandalorian where like his like chest piece bends too, because it was
because they're made out of urethane rubber.
Yeah. So like
all of them are bendy.
Someone who's like, oh, flexible. I'm like, yeah, but that's the stunt armor. That's not the real armor. Like his armor's not supposed to be flexible.
Exactly. That's the stunt guy. Yeah, that's the guy who gets to roll around and hopefully not dent up rubber armor, right? Budgets.
And anything that happens, they can like Photoshop it out or video it out. People don't realize. I remember my favorite interview was talking about Black Panther, and Chaddock talking about how much he suffered in the Black Panther costume, but there were still wrinkles and things that would show up on camera. And at the end, they erased all his costume and redid it in CGI. And he was like, really? After sweating that thing for like months on end, they just redid the whole thing because they were like, well, we wanted to look perfect on screen. And
for those who don't know what we're talking about, this is like Sintra. So this is plastic. This is a kneecap I'm working on.
Right.
This is a urethane kneecap, and I can.
Nice.
I am so excited for these urethane parts. So this is one of the things that we're just starting to dive into ourselves as a business, because our next project, which is unfortunately not Star Wars related but adjacent, is pretty intense, and we're intending to make a lot of those pieces out of the rubber. So I'm excited.
Yeah. About that. So like that's another thing to keep in mind is sometimes we look at screenshots and the armor's going like this, and it's not supposed to. It's supposed to be like you know,
as a cosplayer, you still have to make the decision of like, okay, I'm going to be wearing this all day. Do I want to be miserable in it? Do I, do I want to have more flexibility? And sometimes the answer is, I will take the misery to look good. Like, absolutely, I will suffer for my art.
That was one of my questions. How do you handle uncomfortable cosplays? You're like, I just do it.
So it really depends.
Has gone by, I have made cosplays more and more wearably comfortable because I just realized that I would rather look good and be comfortable at the same time. So I've been trying very hard to slowly bring those two pathways together so that things are comfortable to wear, but I'm not dead on my feet after 16 hours of it. So
I really find it depends. Like sometimes I am willing to suffer because, maybe it's a competition piece. Maybe it's something that I love so much. I want it to be perfect. And sometimes I'm like, okay, but I know that I'm going to wear. So like my Saber Guild costumes are really like, they take the beating of martial arts uniforms. Those have to go through the washer and dryer on the regular because oh boy, do we ever sweat. So they're just like, their seams are finished in that way. And I was wearing one for Halloween. It was just as a Jedi Knight for Halloween at work. And I'm talking to some of my students. I'm a college teacher, talking to some of my students, and they look at my outfit and you say, the thing about that is that doesn't look like a costume. That looks real. That looks like clothes. And I was just like, that's everything I want. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make him look like my clothing that just happens to be Star Wars.
We're making
because
clothes.
I happen to be a Jedi Knight. That's what I wear. So, yeah. And so for those, it's finished seams and it's thinking about practicality and.
So one of the, just kind of adjacently, is having cool little things that you can do with your costumes, right? So this one, my Fennec back here has her little robot panel.
Spoilers. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Right? If you haven't seen The Mandalorian, I'm so sorry.
That's your fault.
You're a little behind. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's on you. But yeah. So like it's so much fun to do this, and I think wearing it like over time, I've definitely done those competition pieces where I've put every effort into it. And one thing I really have started to consider is the weight of my costume. And so like my Bo-Katan jetpack, for instance, is entirely resin printed and then soldered together. So it's so heavy. but I imagine it's a real jetpack and things get a little bit better. But like resin prints and 3D prints are so heavy to wear sometimes. They aren't as light as you might think they are. And then once you add all the layers of paint and stuff and have it all strapped to your body, you realize quite quickly that your range of motion and movement is quite hindered. So thinking about those things ahead of time is super important.
One of the biggest things for me when I was building my Nautilin was trying to compensate for the fact that by its very nature, it was going to be big and heavy and restrictive. I mean, like this is a headpiece with 16 different tentacles on it. And like just by the nature of how much stuff, it limits my ability to look around. So I made concessions like with the T-visor, I made my T-visor very large because I was like, I'm already going to be like compromised just being able to look around. I want to have that clear range of vision.
Field of vision,
because some of those like Mando masks, like it looks really great with like the narrow slit and the tiny slit.
But then with the very slits, or no faces.
Right. If you're watching and you have a kid who is below eye level, like you just be aware if they walk up to somebody, they are
anybody below the waist, unless they're like 10 feet out, you can't see.
So like especially like Tuskens too, like they're looking through little holes. So just if you're a con goer and you have a kid, just be aware that like Star Wars cosplayers will punt them. So just like, be like, oh, there's a kid down here or whatever. That's why we love handlers and everything like that. But like that was when I was building it, I was like, I am aware that I'm going to have compromised mobility. I want to make sure that I still have full sight. And I built it with a loincloth instead of a cod piece. And I'm upgrading to these urethane knees so that I can still sit and kneel and everything like that. So it's a balancing game.
Highly underrated.
If you are thinking about building a Mando, just think twice about the cod piece is all I'm saying.
It's not mandatory for the Mando CRLs, or you don't need to have a cod piece. Yeah. And a lot of it sounds like is like surviving your cosplay or having your cosplay survive, because you can put a cosplay together for a photo shoot and it's going to be like an hour, you get it done, you knock it out, versus being on your feet 8 hours at con and then your friends want to do a happy hour after. Because you're in costume and it's fun, and then you want to take a photo shoot midday, and then it's still like this big endurance where you just collapse in your hotel room. So like
all the more reason to make it comfortable clothing that you can wear during. I mean, even if it is still restrictive and heavy, at least you have those elements where when you take those pieces away or off, you're still in a functional garment that's working.
Do you have life hacks for that? Especially like it was also asked in chat, bathroom access. Because I hate most of my cosplays, I have to strip easily off to use the bathroom.
Mando suits are supposed to be full flight suits with a vest over top. Oh no, I value going to the bathroom unaided, so I made it into 2 pieces. It's a shirt.
I'm like dark top, dark bottom. You can't tell with the armor on. Who cares?
It is pants. You can add little things to keep your shirt tucked in. There's all kinds of little things out there, like at tailor's hacks and stuff. You can get at Whack or any like sewing supply shop that'll have like old-fashioned. Like there are these little like tape things you can put in the side of your pants, and it'll keep your shirt tucked in the whole day. Right?
I build a lot of my shirts as leotards that just have fasteners between the legs, so like I can still go to the bathroom.
I mean, if you're wearing a big crinoline, I mean, there aren't a lot of big crinolines, but if you're in a giant Padme dress that has a giant crinoline underneath it, because they have those big bells, you just go to the bathroom forwards. You just lift up your crinoline and just straddle the toilet. As uncouth as that is. There you go.
Oh my god, I read this message, right? Cosplay snacks. Are you able to hide cosplay snacks in your costumes?
Oh yes. Yeah, my Bo-Katan belt is all like magneting boxes that open. So I have like pretzels and like goldfish and all kinds of other stuff.
You're like, here's my grenade, here's my goldfish crackers.
Did you want a tater tot? I've got some. Like
I literally built my Mando's pouches to be big enough to put my phone and a granola bar in. Like I literally laid them down and I was like, it needs to be this big so I can fit phone and granola bar.
I have a pattern piece that is the size of my phone, so I can put pockets and stuff.
when I made my my Sith belt pouches, it was one to fit the trading cards. I don't actually have Sith trading cards, but I'm gonna, and one to fit the phone, because my next big costume build, which I'm not starting until at least sometime in summer, is a ball gown. It's a Star Wars costume, but it's a ball gown. And I am 100% going to put pockets in the crinoline, like, tie on pockets so that I can carry whatever I need to. And like, it's so fluffy, you're never going to see it.
I'm an advocate for pockets in everything.
Historical tie-on pockets.
Yeah.
And I will say, for those costumes that are like, we don't see them as much in Star Wars, but like if they are skin tight or they are like harder to like hide pockets, one of the places I love to hide things is in my props. So like I had an Amazon that had a shield, and like on the back of my shield was just like a little pouch so that I had like my phone.
Like, Amazons unite! We have our phones on our shield.
I have a water bottle strapped in, like.
Right?
Oh, camelbacks! I wonder if you could stick those in too. Yeah.
Oh, totes. I totally want to figure out how to put a camelback inside my jetpack, so I can just feed it up through my
I think I learned most of my tricks from DragonCon people who try to stick in drinks. Like, they've learned all the secret pouches. Like alcoholics have figured out any method.
So
like blood packets of alcohol stuck to their body. Yeah.
So if we're telling entertaining DragonCon stories, one of the things I have is my X-wing pilot. And my X-wing pilot, so everyone has a call, like fighter pilots get call signs. Call signs are usually like they're given to you, and it's usually kind of an embarrassing story. Like, you don't get to pick your badass call sign. It's because you did something dumb and nobody's gonna let you forget it. So we're in a group build with like 20 of us working on these things, assembly line build style. And I'm trying mine on. It has 7 different pockets. And I stick my hands in them and I go, wow, do you know how many flasks I can fit in these pockets? So,
an important question.
I'm gonna interject. GeekGirlCon supports reasonable drinking.
Yes.
Responsible drinking.
DragonCon is where we
responsible and
drink.
reasonable.
GeekGirlCon recommends reasonable drinking. To be fair, they don't all have to be flasks full of alcohol. They could also be full of like water and snacks and stuff. So.
You can still look with a flask of like water or Gatorade or something. Like,
yeah, no, it'd be great.
It's vitamin water, officer, I swear.
It's not me chugging 3 vodka flasks.
No, it's not. It's flavored water. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You sound drunk, but you're just like cosplay tired. You're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's the 11th hour and you're like slurring your words like you've been drinking steadily for the last 3. I'm like, yeah, kind of, yeah.
Parts of your costume are held on by duct tape and you've forgotten like which parts are held on.
I mean, aren't they always held on by duct tape? No.
Children or
some
what?
of mine are duct. Some of mine.
Oh, okay.
That is one of my that is one of my challenges to myself this year for celebration, is that none of my costumes are duct taped at all. It's like a challenge.
The no gaffy tape. The no gaff tape. Yeah. No.
I realize
it's hot glue. No.
Yeah. Leave the prepare kit at home. Challenge.
I'm using tape on purpose in one of my things because I need to be able to change from having plain black boots to having a yellow stripe on my boots as I'm doing a costume change. And rather than like pack 2 pairs of boots or something, it turns out you can get yellow painter's tape. Like, there's a specialty version of painter's tape that's yellow. So for that, I'm just going to slap that down and like, this is a cosplay hack right here. Like, I'm doing it on purpose.
In my bookmarks, colored painter's tape. Oh my God, there's the rainbow.
Right?
How did I not know this? It's like $9 in Amazon. You get all the colors, people.
There you go.
Order it right now, Anabel.
I know.
Do it.
I don't even know if I need it yet, but my brain's like,
doesn't matter.
Just have it ready.
Do it.
Oh, okay. Now I'm going to lean back into Star Wars a little bit, just because for my selfish reasons. I know we touched on some costumes, but sometimes it's hard during panels to like highlight stuff you kind of wanted to mention, but didn't have the chance to. Do you have any projects you're really excited about, past or present, that you kind of want to like grab stuff and show us, or anything you want to show off to people?
I mean, it's kind of behind me.
You're like everything back here.
this is not the limit of, but I mean, I've done a few Mandalorians at this point. I've done, these fine ladies back here, and I'm about, ironically, to make that ceremonial dress for Leia for a client here in another month. So
oh, nice.
I'm actually super excited about that.
You're like, I'm super busy. It's awesome.
I love it. This is a great problem to have. This is one of those things that's like constant anxiety, fear, just like it's running at like weird low constantly kind of thing, where you're like, oh god. Oh god. No,
well, if you're always anxious, you can't be surprised with anxiety, right?
Right? Yeah. So it's just drink a lot of water, just think good thoughts. No, it's these projects back here every project teaches me something, right? So every project is an effort or a challenge to try and be like, what kind of puzzle is this? How can I challenge myself to be better?
Which ones would you turn down? Which commissions if you were like, I don't want to learn that?
So, honestly, so one of the Star Wars commissions that I actually just refused to make is that awful gown that she's wearing when she's dead in her coffin. And it's like this weird take on a Fortuny gown, which if you don't know what that is, he was a Victorian era fashion designer who was famous for taking silk and kind of broom crinkling it in a very specific way. And he had a really weird method of doing it. But once he was done, it was this figure hugging kind of beautifully pleated silk garment. And
I just looked at the photo and I'm like, that looks like a nightmare to do.
Yeah. So, but her gown, and she's kind of like post-pregnancy body at the time too. So she's kind of got this, like I said, it's very Fortuny kind of inspired, but also still very flowy. And I was just like, nope.
You're like, not today, Satan.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that we have to always consider is that your price point may not be able to afford what you want.
So they're like 20 grand. Can you do it?
Fennec is a really
for
awesome
20 grand,
example.
I'd do it. And I hate
a budget of 20 grand, and I'm going to turn that into a screen accurate costume, no problem. But working on budgets of a couple thousand, there's not that much room for expensive experimentation, we'll call it.
And it's the opportunity cost. You accept the commission, you have to turn down other commissions. You have to balance out what you want to work on versus the available time. And time is limited because Star Wars has exploded as a fandom.
My gosh. Yeah. And so our timelines are pretty short. And so I've got to work on a pretty consistent timeline on a regular basis. And so with the kind of time that we tell people is our turnaround time versus what we're, charging for that product, you're getting kind of, the best you can get within that price bracket, right? Yeah. But that's not always going to get you a screen accurate costume because it might not allow for it.
But you give her the most of the foundation. I feel like people complain like I commissioned something, I spent $2,000 and it's still not getting me approved. And I'm like, you can tweak it yourself for those little minor things that you need, or ask a friend locally to help you. Or I'm sure if you're like, you commission awesome pilot and you're the Rebel Legion to help you. Like,
there's this fabric. I mean, specifically for this Fennec costume. I mean, the CRL for it in the 501st, I believe, is ridiculous. It's very long. It's very involved. It's at a level of skill that not a casual layperson is ever going to approach. And so it's one of those things. And then there's these two fabrics that are specifically made by the designer of the costume, and you can't get them anywhere. They don't exist. She had them custom made. So, until just recently, there's a group on Facebook with a gentleman who just finally came around with one of the two fabrics, who he's managed to get a manufacturing process and has gotten a woven fabric that mimics what that fabric is. But honestly, there's nothing else out there that mimics it perfectly. And so it makes it really difficult to make.
Especially for sewing stuff. I feel like with hard props, you're lucky if you know really good 3D modelers who can like whip something into existence.
Exactly.
Or because some original parts are like, recently my husband, I forgot which part. There's so many backpack parts in Star Wars. I had no idea until they started talking, and my brain was like, what?
Yeah, the Greebles are ridiculous.
And it was like, I spent $90 from this part for Australia for a backpack. And I'm like, what? Not like the wife going like, why would you do that? But more like, well, congrats on finding the right part. And two, like, are you gonna like share the love? And he absolutely was able to like model and help people with their backpacks too in his like Facebook group. So it's like that discovery of being challenged to find stuff that might no longer exist, or there's like one guy in a junkyard in Australia who has it up on eBay and somebody snipes it, and you gotta pray that the person who sniped it is good.
Part of the fun is finding them, right?
Yeah.
So... like the Jedi saber clips on the belt in like the prequels and stuff like that, like they belong to a camera that's not in existence anymore.
Right.
And like,
I mean, everywhere makes them
out there, but like you can't really like just discover them anymore. They don't exist anymore. So like, you know, there's all these like little pieces of going for that screen accurate. Like sometimes like how, you know,
it's really fascinating to me, just as like a side point, how many little odds and ends and doodads, like mechanical parts that the film industry has driven into like more mass market production, right? Like, so these old like radio parts and like these old just random pieces from machinery from like 50 years ago, and all of a sudden there's a thingery like model for the same damn piece. Like it's
or like
that's amazing to me.
So I picked up a brand because in 1999 they used a certain brand of Statler pen cap to make the Jedi food capsules, but I found these Pentel pens now that are pretty dang close. All I'm gonna do once I use up the pen, because they actually turn out to be really good pens, is put a little brass, you know, plastic dome on the bottom end and then sand them and paint them. And so I have a set of commercial Jedi food capsules, but I'm gonna make my own that are better. Although my very favorite found prop thing in 1999, when we were all watching the little tiny babies watching the Phantom Menace, and I walked into I saw Qui-Gon Jinn on his communicator, and I got done with it, and I walked into my bathroom and picked up my razor and went, and it gets better, because what I did was I washed it, stopped using that razor, washed it, and saved it for 18 years before I got around.
You were that person, you'll never have it.
Making my Jedi costume and making a communicator with that exact women's razor base. Exact one.
Yep. That razor.
I'm pretty proud of still having had it.
So people are like, you guys are hoarders. They're like, we're not hoarders, we're researchers, and we have an archive of stuff that will someday be useful for somebody that 10 years down the road. We're saving lives here.
I have an entire box just full of like weird little pieces and tubes and like squares and stuff like that. And it's my Greeblies box. And whenever I'm making something, I go to the Greeblies box and see. And I just actually made a vibro axe for my Mandalorian. And half the stuff came right out of the Greeblies box, because it was just like weird little like plumbing things from Lowe's and just like toy pieces and like Nerf gun guts and everything like that. And that's what I made my axe out of, is all those little random Greeblies. So
I just want to say to people who are watching, Amber and Heather have now switched spots, in case there's any confusion who is who.
Sorry, my connection dropped really at a poor moment, and I apologize.
At least it didn't switch all of us up. I'm like, okay, me and Tori are in the same spot. I'm like, I'll give a heads up for you two.
You just like, should I like switch?
So or you're like point down.
We'll all look this way.
On a panel, if something doesn't go weird, right?
Pretty much.
This is my life in a nutshell.
That's a so has there been a case where, like, this is my life in a nutshell, where you felt like that but you managed to pull through last minute, or a case where you had to just like surrender and trash it? Like, do you have the good and bad and how to cope with both situation with the costume?
I mean, I'm in that situation for Celebration. Like, I've been trying to make a new set of Leku for my Twi'lek that are much longer, because I want longer Leku for her. And like the mold is like 75% done. And I had that moment this morning of sitting there and being like, I could push through and get it done in time, but I would have to not sleep. Like I would not be sleeping, and I would be leaving my husband to do all the packing and stuff like that. And it becomes like that question of what, like, is it worth it, I guess, you know, or
you don't have
like,
to be that person anymore.
yeah, like can I like the nice thing is like I can make my own leku, so I still have the other leku mold. So if I was really in a dearth, I could like go grab my other mold. But like there's definitely, I feel like, a lot of pressure to always make cons with new stuff. And even in like Star Wars, like especially in the Star Wars community, I feel like that's super detrimental because so many Star Wars costumes are so involved and so like in depth, and like
it's really hard to maintain on a long term. So
burnout is real.
Yeah.
I hit the point where I was like, I know I could crunch through this, but I'm so tired. Like I don't want to.
Right. Yeah. I'm in my early 40s, so at this point I'm like, it's 9 o'clock past my bedtime.
Yeah.
So, like
I'm in a game or something. Like my brain is here to relax.
So, you know, and we at this point now we're doing conventions on such a regular basis that the timeline for myself has really kind of relaxed, especially because of my commission timeline has become so much more important. But also just because, you know, as an aging and growing adult, I'm more there now, less, you know, because now it's business. I now want to go and have those moments where I'm there for fun and there for the social and less there for the business. And so like having costume like crunch moments has become a lot less important. It's like I have so many at this point.
I crunch
I'm just gonna wear this.
If I crunch all the time for commissions, it's hard to then crunch for myself, you know?
Yeah, I find the motivation for myself to be a lot more lacking after I've worked a full day on someone else's costume.
Yep.
Like my feeling about it is almost inevitably, if I crunch, I will be miserable. And I'll probably end up cutting corners. Yeah. And I'll probably get to the end and go, I was miserable and this isn't even up to my standards. Like, it's wearable and it's done, but it's not good enough. And like,
am I happy? No.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't feel good to wear at that point. Like you feel like you're forcing yourself to, just because you have to rush to get it done.
And so I'm like, no.
I could get this mold done if I did it like sloppily, but like I want to be able to reuse this mold a lot. Like I want this to be my mold for like the next several years. So like
it requires
it
care
became
when
my
you do it
issue
the first
just
time.
like
Yeah. And I want to walk out there on the con floor and be like, absolutely, I look exactly the way I want to. You know, I want to have that feeling of pride in my work and my accomplishments and being able to say, yeah, this is right. This is what I've envisioned it. And I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm wearing it, but I kind of hate it or whatever. Like, no, I'm the whole point. If I'm putting in, you know, hundreds and hundreds of hours, which is not uncommon for some of mine, or, you know, what feels like hundreds anyway, I don't want to, no, I want to be able to rock it. And I want a gown that I can come back 10 years later and be like, I am absolutely still wearing this out. You know, like the gown I'm bringing to Celebration is 10 years old. And I don't
put that love and care into it where it can be something you're proud of forever.
Exactly. And like, I'll wear it until it, you know, if it ever doesn't fit or if it ever gets damaged, but even if it gets damaged, it's going on a mannequin somewhere. Like,
I mean, I still have pieces of my armor, my first armor that I made a decade ago at this point, you know, like I still have those pieces because I made them out of Sintra and I made them in a way that they lasted. And like, it's nice to know that I can just go grab them and put them on. And I made them literally ages ago and they're still fine, you know?
Yeah.
So like, there's something to be said about like building something to wear forever.
Right, heirloom projects is what I call them because they're meant to stay in your closet. Like you might stop wearing them eventually, but you're going to keep them for sentimental value, for whatever
on cool
reason.
mannequins.
Exactly, you might display them because you can't wear them anymore, and they're still works of art. They're still pieces of hard work that you put a lot of energy and effort into, and they deserve to have that spotlight. They honestly do. So, you know, making them really well and having pride in that is now more important to me than necessarily getting it done and having it there for that specific event. I would rather have and put all that craftsmanship and work and effort to good use by doing it really well than doing it kind of well, but not really.
They're always going to be another con, you know? They're always going to be another one.
they keep rolling around. So, you know, I mean, yeah.
And it's like you said, there's always gonna be another con. It's like with the pandemic, we're very fortunate to have our health, to be able to go to cons, to be able to work on cosplay. And if you can't finish a costume in time, like acknowledge that you did a lot of work in a really rough period of time that's still lingering and still really stressful for all of us. Be proud of what you did and look forward to other opportunities, like resurrect a cosplay you might have had, you know, like maybe do a slight tweak to it, bring it to the new show. The cosplay you've almost finished, wait till you recovered from the con you're going to, do a photo shoot to celebrate finishing the work, maybe in a couple weeks. Or I have a few friends crunching for celebration, and I've told them, you don't need to crunch because Dragon Con's 3 months away. Like there's still other huge cons that you can still like debut your costume. And nobody's going to tell you like, I can't believe you're not debuting your costume in time. Like, it's like, well, if you're not paying me to do this, then I'm going to do it on my own time.
If someone says that to you, point me at them and I will mom at them.
This is supposed to be a fun hobby, right? You are supposed to be enjoying it. Like, there are certainly times when I've been like, oh my God, my hands are killing me. Or like, I got done with a project. When did I finish? I finished it for last Dragon Con, so last summer, and I hated most of the manufacturing. It was so tedious and frustrating and painful. I hated it. But now that it's done, I can wear it. And when people compliment me, I can be like, thanks, I'm enjoying it now, because it was miserable to build, but now it looks awesome.
I hated it once, but I love it now.
Exactly. Thank you for building up my ego, because man, did it suck.
Well, and you know, as enjoyable as wearing the costume at the end really is, it is quite temporary and fleeting. And so I have found that I also have grown into enjoying the process of making a whole lot more as well. So like I really just love what I do. So I get to wake up and sew things all day long, and sometimes that's a drag and I'm not really looking forward to my work, and other times it's amazing and I love every second of it. But at no point am I ever miserable or being like, God, why am I doing this? This is the worst ever. How, you know, like I'm just enjoying the process of making a thing and going through a set of steps and being like, hey, I made progress today.
And if you ever feel miserable, like, I can always get an office job again. And like, no.
Yeah, so that's been the biggest learning curve for me, is like moving. So like I went like straight from administrative assistant, like 45 hours a week with like 2 kids and like doing the whole like mom thing, to independent artist all of a sudden. And I was like,
wasn't like this, like, everything crashed. And you're like, what am I doing?
I think I went through a period of time where I was like depressed that I didn't have a normal schedule anymore.
Oh,
like because
there's a transition, like
this weird transitioner. It was weird not having a set schedule or a managed schedule that was managed by someone else. Largely, it was just like, nope, you're your own boss. You can do whatever, and so your motivation really has to come from within you all the time. And when it's not there, it's really, really hard to work. So, you know, you kind of also just have to go with that flow as well and be like, oh, Kenny. Be like, squirrel. But you just focus on the art piece of it for yourself and what that means to you. And I find you probably enjoy it.
And there are some people who don't like enjoy building, and like they just enjoy wearing the cosplays, and like that's completely valid and legit too. Like
that's where you buy your stuff or you commission someone else to make it,
and you support the makers,
right? And you support makers like
I always tell people, when they commission, you're not just supporting yourself in the cosplay community, you're supporting somebody else. Like, so you're like double as, you know, powerful in the, you know, double the effect in the cosplay community, because you just made it possible for like me or Heather to, you know, pay for groceries. You look amazing, you know, and we can then turn around and cosplay too, because we're fed and such, you know.
And
so
I get a lot of enjoyment from other people wearing my costumes at this point, because if I've made you feel fantastic, then that's like part of the payment for me. Is, you know, like I made you feel like $1 million. You walked out there and you rocked the shit out of it, and you were like, yeah, and you know, you owned it. And it's like, I cannot replace that feeling of helping someone else come to that kind of serotonin level.
And you've been in their seat. You know what it's like to wear a
Exactly.
costume for the first time, find love in their costume, and you're like, I did that for them. I was the like magical creator who's bestowed not this blessing upon them. That's dramatic, but like you brought so much
You're
joy
like a
into their
costume
lives.
fairy.
Like
It's like, and you get a costume, and you get a costume.
So that's actually one of I was just thinking about like what was a moment when I felt that awesome. And it was actually it's sort of in context of also getting to make other people feel awesome. Which is it was recently May the 4th, which is of course Star Wars nerds, equivalent of a high holiday. And several people from Alpha Base, our local Rebel Legion chapter, and Garrison Titan, the 501st, were down at the Space Needle. They had a Space Needle troop.
Oh, nice.
And my friend and I were both dressed as Jedi generals, so with the fancy armor. And there was this little, he might not even have been 2. There was this little toddler kid who came up and was just so sort of awestruck. And we could sort of, and the photographer from the Space Needle was there and captured this photo. And I wish I'd thought to include it in the slide deck. And we're both kneeling down to hand him our trading cards. And he just kind of has this wonder and this serious expression. Like he got to meet real Jedi that day. And that was me and Caitlin. And it is just so special to, and we both made every stitch of our clothes that we were wearing and the armor pieces and everything. And just to become that for ourselves and to give that to somebody else, like particularly the little kids who absolutely believe. Because there's definitely a point where kids are like, okay, we know you're not, we'll pretend you're real, but we know you're not real.
Right.
But there's an age where they do think you're real, and it's just kind of the most magical thing. I've had it happen with my Captain America costumes too, when they just absolutely believe. And
It
it's
reminds
just
me of Wonder Woman days. Oh gosh, every little girl. They're just like, I love you all.
and they might not be able to comprehend who you are. Like my husband was doing as Mando when a kid walked up like, are you from the army? Just like awestruck.
You look so cool.
Yeah, that's in kids' heads.
you
And I think of those moments when I was a
100%.
kid and I saw people like, Orlando Studios or somebody, and I thought they were real and it had that magic, and it's cool to like pass it on to the kids. And like whenever you feel rough with like a cosplay day, having a kid like squee run up to you and their parent going, photo? Can I take a photo? It's like nothing beats that moment.
It's a good one.
And it looks like chat is rooting for the slideshow. So I think that that's a
They're like,
cue.
stop. We
They're
want
like, no, show off our stuff. No. Janae, if you'd like to set that up, we can definitely talk through it. And it's up to you all. GeekGirlCon panels are super casual, so if any of you need to go early, let me know. But I feel like we're good for another like 20 minutes because I'm just geeking out with y'all.
easy, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, it looks like Heather's work is up. And that tag there, sionnoch.studios is how you say it?
Sure. Okay.
Sorry. You're like, I hate this. I have to say it every time. I'm sorry.
Okay. So when we were naming our company, we kind of discussed this. We're like, do we want to deal with nobody understanding what this is? And the answer is unequivocally yes. So, my husband and I both share Scottish heritage, and while that's not entirely a Scottish word, it is a very Gaelic word, and you have 2 different ways in which you can say it. There's an Irish way and there's a Scottish way. I say it the Scottish way, which is sionnoch.
Sionnoch.
Yep.
Sionnoch. I'm going to impress Will next time I see him, like, oh, Sionnoch. And he's like,
right? If you've ever seen the name Chauvin spelled out, it looks really, really weird.
yeah.
Because
Okay.
they have the SIO is a whole like conjugate verb thing in the language. I don't speak it, so I don't know. But it means fox. Hence the foxes. But that first slide there is if it's showing red and white costumes, right? Yeah.
Next slide. Yeah.
Yeah. Should be a picture of Marin in a Jedi, pretty generic Jedi costume for my husband, who is making a Jedi.
Y'all said generic, but look at those folds. Look at that word. Like you're all like, oh, it's just a generic. And
I'm
me
like,
who can't sew is like,
it's not
holy
there
crap.
anymore. No, so my husband really wanted to make this Jedi character that's from an upcoming game, and he really loves it. It's just really cool, and I'm not going to go into too many details about it because it's like his secret project. But suffice it to say, it has some Jedi robes, which kind of follow this line. And so I took the old simplicity pattern that I've had.
Your mic's going quiet. Sorry to be that person.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay.
So I took
I'm
the
like,
old
oh, you have to
simplicity
moderate.
pattern. Yeah, I took the old simplicity pattern that came out like in 2000, right after the second trilogy came out, and was like, I'm going to alter this as much as I can to kind of be in line with what he wants. And so I took this really crappy muslin we had, washed it, dyed it an orange color, and then used the rest of it to make his whole like robes. So
Nice.
Yeah, he really loved them. That's all that really matters to me about them. Standing next to that, though, is Naren, who is also behind me and is in more of a finished state now than she was in that picture. But she's kind of in stasis right now because I'm working on other projects. But she's
Hashtag
been,
mood.
right? Like I have this cowl for her downstairs that I need to like slather in barge so that I can put vinyl on top of it, and I've just been avoiding it because I'm like, I don't want to wear my mask. So, and that's just.
And I don't know about you, but like barge always, like even if I wear gloves and stuff like that, I always end up with it like on my fingers and stuff like that.
It's on my fingertips because I've like wiped it off the side of something. Yeah, I was barging.
Safety is important, people. Don't touch this stuff.
Yeah,
wear gloves, wear respirator.
Safety advisory: if you're using barge cement, you need to be wearing a respirator and gloves. Please protect yourself when using harsh chemicals. You will thank yourself later when you don't have brain cancer.
Don't skimp on safety stuff. And always scold your partners if they'd like forget. Not that I've done that to my husband. Hey, where's your respirator?
No, Will is usually telling me to put my mask on. Okay. So I'm the guilty party. All right. Next slide would be a Costco vest that I recently completed. Now, I've made probably about 50 total Bo-Katan flight suits at this point. So I got a lot of practice. One could say.
Do you dream of it?
I have nightmares about it, frankly. Well, because, there's this fine line between doing commissions and then being like a replicant, like just a mill, right? And for a certain, like last summer, my entire summer for 4 months solid was making these these suits. And that was all I was making. It was a sea of gray twill and brown vinyl. I was like so done.
You're like, thanks for paying my rent, but F
right?
you.
Like it was definitely like it paid my paycheck for the whole year, but holy shit, I was so done with Bo-Katan by the time I was done with it. So it's
I want to ask you about Bo-Katan when I see you.
Right? She's a labor of love for sure. I mean, I love the character so much, and so ultimately all that sewing didn't super bother me, but in the level of things, like I'm ADHD enough that I need to ping pong around sometimes with projects or I go crazy. So, like having to have hyper focused like that on that project was difficult, but I'm glad that I got through it. We'll put it that way. So then from that evolved like a whole mess of pattern making and pattern drafting that I then have grown into and have been learning how to do steadily over my time period. And so now I'm even getting to the point where I'm pattern drafting into sized patterns, which is like huge for me.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is a Costco vest that I then made a pattern for, sized it out, and is in my shop. I guess the next slide would then lead into like we wanted to make some generic Mando kind of suits, and so I needed a dude's version of it because at this point I've just been making me-sized things. So I made a suit for my husband, who then also made a helmet for himself to color match the suit choices that he made as far as colors were concerned, to just try and show like our range and stuff like that. But this whole costuming thing has like evolved into this path of costuming and pattern making that I never really expected to come out of a cosplay hobby, right?
Like I started this for fun. Now I have like all these like pattern making skills. I can recreate anything. This is so crazy.
What's funny, and this question has always stayed with me. Even since he asked it, is like, one of the first things my husband said, I was going through a really, really depressive state. I was like, oh, this all sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Why do I even try? And he's like, what would your 6-year-old self think of you right now in your profession? And I was like,
Torrey, you had to look like, no.
Right? And I was like, it's interesting that you asked that, because I think my 6-year-old self would think I'm pretty flipping awesome right now. I'm an independent artist who lives in Seattle area. Like, holy, that I come from small town Pennsylvania, and that's like the epitome of, oh God, I reached the top. So, like it took one of those perspective changing moments for me to realize that what I've got and what I do is really stupid cool. And I own it now. Like, I'm just like, yep, this is what I do. I'm an artist, I'm a craftsman, and that's who I am.
This is
So it's
me.
fun having that moment of people, like, when people are like, what do you do for your job? And you're like, okay, do you know what cosplay is? Like, how much do I need to get into that?
And how weird are you going to think I am by just saying the word cosplay? Because the word, even though it shouldn't, carries a whole rainbow of stigma and weirdness. That, so you have a range of how people could react to you when you say,
oh, so you're a furry?
How many spoons do I have?
Right? Yeah. It's like, how do I describe this to you who is a layperson and probably isn't into costumes? Okay, well, I make screen accurate costumes that copy things that you see in film. So
I'm like, just say like you're like a movie studio costume person. You just do it on a smaller scale, which is true.
I'm into theater costume arts, and I like to do that kind of stuff. Yeah, because then it kind of encompasses all of that.
Because people go, I'm just a cosplay maker, and I'm like, it's not just like.
No, it's the weird thing is that word does not fully and accurately encompass or encapsulate everything that goes into it. So it's a deceptively tiny word for something that means so much skill. Like there's this whole packet of different, like sometimes contradictory skills that you need just to make one costume.
It's like the iceberg cosplay's little tip, and the bottom's like marketing, sewing, wrangling, work-life balance, all the stuff that comes with it.
But whenever people are like, oh, I want to do cosplay full time, I'm like, okay, but it's not just cosplay full time. It's the marketing, it's figuring out how to monetize, it's posting, it's continually like having new photo shoots, like it's figuring out how you're going to afford going on vacation, it's all these things.
Insurance.
Like,
living.
Like, figuring out insurance, like, people are like, oh, I want to be a cosplayer full time. I'm like, okay, but do you, or do you just want to get money for looking pretty? Because those are two very different things.
Yeah. I tell them budget for how much time you want off to see if it's going to work. And then make sure you can go back to what you're doing in something similar, not because you're going to fail, but because they need a backup plan when they panic and they go through that moment of, do I want to hit my boss or do I want to hit myself for a bit? Because
and you might try and find out that you hated it. Like I initially went to part-time by doing sewing commissions, and I was beyond miserable. Unlike Heather, I hated sewing.
Don't get me wrong, I hated this when I started it.
Like there was a curve.
Like
that was like I had to adjust. Right?
Yeah, I got through 6 and I was like, nope, I'm done. And I've been able to like tune in onto like the props and the stuff I actually enjoy making. But like you might have this idea of like you want to do this, and you might try it and be like, oh no, this is terrible.
This is a poor choice.
And like working from home is lonely too. Like we've all kind of gotten a taste of it with the pandemic, but like for those of you who are extroverts or those of you who have a job with people, like imagine not having that.
Right. I listen to a lot of Critical Role because I have. But moving on, I'll keep going through the slides so I don't take up all of your guys' time. So it should be the armor is what's there next, right? Front back. That, speaking of like diving off the deep end into I hated every moment of it, that's a costume that, the first time you make it, it's like, all right, cool. I can get through this. This kind of sucks, but I'll make it. The third time you make it, you're like, no. I'm at the point where I hate vinyl pleats so much that if I do another one, I'm probably going to scream. But I'll still do it.
Just charge more. Inconvenience cost.
Well, and see, that's what it becomes, right? It's like you kind of outmode these costumes you've done before and someone else wants you to make, but you're like, okay, well, I don't really have the time nor the desire to want to make this again unless you make it worth my while. So here's a quote for what would make it worth my while. And if that works for you, great. And if that doesn't, I'm not I'm just
You're like, I can refer somebody else. That's what we do. Like, we can refer somebody else.
I'm like, I can't take this on right now, but here's my friend who may be able to help you out, you know?
And the friend's like, why would you do that to me?
It's like malicious friendship, right? It's like, I love you, here's some business.
We've had that, sorry. I might have sent some of those to you, like, oh, an armor. And I'm like, no, we didn't love doing those.
We've done it. And, you know, legitimately you run into people who are like, you know what, I actually have a friend who'd probably be better at this than I can, what you're looking for. So I'm going to refer you to them because I'm not your best choice. And I know somebody who is. But I mean, that armor costume was one that we dived into and we're like, I mean, honestly, if I go by strictly Star Wars costumes, this is probably like my second and most like deepest of darkest of rabbit hole like Star Wars costumes ever. And the first one was like an OC Sith that I had made up like a couple of years earlier and never finished. So I was like, yeah.
But it got you somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to, and we just, you know, pardon the phrase, balls to the wall, just like went for it. And we're like, nope, we're doing this. And it turned out really well. And as it turns out, I actually only have like 2 pieces. This is one of them.
The helmet?
Yeah. Well, I was like, I don't know where I am.
I see it. Next to Revan, I think.
That's the only part I have left of it in the apron. So, you know, like at that point, I've sold off the rest of the costume because I don't, you know.
You just purged it from your life. You're like,
I'm done. I wore it
I'll
twice
keep my helmet,
and I'm over it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it's hot too. And, you know, that helmet, speaking of Mandalorian helmets, just as an aside, the difference of the Mandalorian helmet to other typical Mandalorian helmets is those cheeks are super deep cut. And so what happens is that they're so deep cut that it makes it super narrow. And so when your head is a little, like, you know, heads are a little wider at the temple point than they are at the like cheek point most times. And so like you couldn't get it over your head without oversizing it slightly. So it's like, you know, it was a really tricky kind of sizing, you know, and that helmet even so is still a little big for me because.
And the original actress was pretty petite, I think, right?
Oh my gosh, Emily Swallow. So I've met her and she's like 3 inches shorter than I am. I'm 5'6", so she's about the same height as Natalie Portman is. She's like this tiny little thing, and she's so petite. And so I'm like, oh gosh. So she, you know, she was able to get into it pretty easily. So, but it's just one of those helmets that's hard to fit, right? And so it ends up being super uncomfortable because nothing else fits inside it. You can't put a fan, there's no room for a microphone, there's not really anything to make it more comfortable, and it fogs up really quickly. And so
no secret snacks is what you're telling me.
No, it's not a helmet that you wear for a long period of time and expect to do anything. I mean, your field of vision.
And the whole Mando thing, like in the show, was like, don't take off your helmet with like their group,
right?
And it's like, curse you guys.
And then, you know, we have this awesome friend. I'm going to say next slide and hope it's still the armor.
Yay.
This nice shot of the armor is, you know, I have this really awesome friend who doesn't quite do this anymore, but at the time was still doing it. And we sent one of our home pictures to him since we live a little bit further apart, and he composited it together for us and did an awesome job. Kupka photo, just to give him a credit for it. And made me feel like a badass without actually ever having stepped out of my house in that costume.
Now you got your cool guy photo, you can get rid of the costume. You're
right?
Like, we've got the photo shoot, we're out.
I got this cool photo, I'm done. So, I'll go to next slide. And then, of course, that led into the deep hole that was and to become Bo-Katan. She's one of those characters that I've loved in Star Wars forever. Since she showed up in Clone Wars, it's like, oh girl, she's my girl. So I like you. So I've been a fan of hers for a really long time, but never did her as a costume. And so when I finally saw Katie Sackhoff be her, I was just like, and I turned to Will, my husband, and I said, we're making that. And he said, okay. And he, you know, I have the benefit of a very doting husband who pretty much does what I have. So he's like, all right, cool. And so, you know, he jumped into it with me. And it's become one of my favorite costumes, actually. I like wearing that costume. I'll say next slide, because that's my last slide. It's just me. I love wearing that costume. It makes me feel like a badass, even more than Wonder Woman did, which is a really weird thing to say because Wonder Woman made me feel very empowered and strong. And you know, Bo is one of those characters that I feel takes that to a different level. And I just like, oof, she's all about independent feminism, and I love her.
She's always been presented, because Star Wars and female characters, like we have a great array of strong female characters. Yeah. But there are certain characters who have never, I feel like, have never had the portrayal through kind of the male gaze, and only have ever had like themselves portrayed as the leaders. And like, that's Bo-Katan. Like she's always been the leader, the one in charge, the badass. Like, yeah. So there's something very fiercely strong about her that's not compromised anywhere. Right. And I really love that.
Yeah, I mean, I have this weird like, as many people do, I'm very reverential about Leia, and so she's like one of those cosplays where I will make her gladly for others, but for myself, she's not one of those characters that I'm ever going to want to cosplay, because she's like a goddess in my head. So like, you know, like that's not a pedestal I want to usurp from her, and so like, but Bo is more accessible to me, and I have yet to jump into Leku and Montrails, and that's my next adventure.
Amber's really, like, yes.
Yes. So Amber, I need to pick Amber's brain, because I'm gonna do a Harris and Dula, and I'm like super excited about it. So
Harris so awesome. She's so much fun. Yeah.
I mean, your husband is Kanan, so
right? Yeah. He gave me little choice. I was just like, no, see, you gotta now I gotta do it.
Such a good couple's costume.
Right? Yeah. I find that we strive for couples costumes more often now too, just because we're weird and cute.
Now we've got Tori's Gallery, and hopefully I'll say this one right. Tereshkova Costuming.
Tereshkova Costuming. Yep, Facebook and Instagram and all that jazz. Yeah, it was sort of hard to narrow these things down, so I kind of went with sort of to give you all a breadth of my Star Wars costuming. So next slide. The first one I have here is one of my Jedi. I have two different Jedi with slight variations on the tunics. I kind of think of them as a summer weight and winter weight. This is my summer weight Jedi. The prosthetic piece I did not make. I bought that. A friend of mine had got it from Composite FX.
They're like seamless on you. Oh my gosh.
They're a company that does like haunted house masks for that kind of thing. So it's just a pullover, one piece, and then I do the black makeup around the eyes, and I usually wear like
Batman.
Exactly like Batman, yeah. But it's fun. The kids love it. I was prepared for kids to be like scared and confused by this alien cat person, but they love it, which is really fun.
Does anybody come up to you and or meow at you? I just
not a ton, honestly.
Okay.
People are pretty cool.
You, Heather? You're like, yes. Sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, I would be that person.
No, you're fine.
But so okay.
Not a whole lot, but I have had some kids who were like, my nickname is Kitty, which was just painfully cute. So
all sign Kitty.
Yeah. So yeah, and the Jedi, let's see. That's the off the rack stuff. My other Jedi, which is heavier weight linen, I hand dyed all the colors to get the exact right colors I wanted. But this was off the rack.
Oh, that looked like a flip the screen. I was doing yes, not. It was blurring my hands. Go ahead.
Go ahead and do the next one. This is my X-Wing pilot Flask. This is the costume that I have the most fun wearing because she's a fighter pilot. So I get to have that like Top Gun hot shit kind of attitude where she is the hottest thing in the squadron and she knows it and she will not let you forget it. Like, it's just such a fun over the top character. I have a little bit of that with Captain Marvel, but for me, like, Captain Marvel is almost that icon that Leia is to you, Heather. And it's not that I don't love Leia, but like every time I suit up as Captain Marvel, I have to stop myself from crying because I get to be her. And suiting up as Flask, because the X-Wing pilot has all of the fun and none of the emotional resonance. It's just, but I just want to dress up and like wear sunglasses and make finger guns at people.
And you're like beaming in this photo. Like I can see your energy. Like you
Right?
love
Yeah.
this cosplay.
It's taken at the Museum of Flight, which is my very, very favorite place, and particularly to be an X-Wing, to be a fighter jock in a fighter jock museum is just so fun. This last year, they let us, I helped with, Saber Guild was doing lightsaber training there over Yuri's night. And so we've got a whole bunch of kids at the Museum of Flight, and I'm dressed as an X-Wing pilot, you know, narrating into the microphone, and they set us up in the center of the museum underneath the SR-71 Blackbird, which is one of my favorite planes. It's gorgeous. And they just let us, there's like, here, train these kids how to be Jedi. Here's in the middle, right underneath this airplane. And it was just really, really cool. Yeah, exactly. It was so much fun.
Sounds so awesome.
It really, really was. Yeah, so that's one of my favorites. I'm bringing that one to Celebration. The next slide is one I've also talked about on stream already here. That's my lake gown. Hand dyed, hand sewn, hand patterned. What year was it? I don't remember. It might have been like 2014, 2013. So not too long after I'd finished it. The Mopop, which I think was still called the EMP back then, had a traveling exhibit of Star Wars costumes. And they had the real lake gown. And I went in and I was taking transit in, and I spent the entire transit ride going, but what if they have it and I see everything wrong with mine? What if I can never wear mine ever again because all I will ever see are all the flaws? Like I was just so nervous about this. And you know, we go in and we see the thing and we come, you know, and there she is in the rack of Padme's gorgeous gowns. There it is. And I looked at it and I just was like, because I've gotten it right. There's nothing I would change about it. Every detail. The one difference is that I made it before I was finishing the seams a lot. So there's a lot of raw seams on the interior that I would now have either serged or French seamed. But
the tiniest nitpick too. You're like, is this tiny?
Right. So it's funny, you know, like from first Bo-Katan to last Bo-Katan, even that is like, dude, I can see the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this is one of those things that people who are new to cosplay or haven't cosplayed don't realize is that no matter how much time and energy you spend on a cosplay, you will get to the point where you look back and go, oh my God, I would have done so much different. Like that is just part of the process. Right. Like I always tell people, your first cosplay, you're going to get done wearing it. And then you're going to be like, I can do it better. Like,
exactly.
It's just part of it. Like,
yeah.
Any skill, don't feel bad.
Don't cosplay. Yeah.
Cooking, anything else you do in life, your first is never going to be as good as your most recent. But you have to start somewhere.
Right. And it's evidence of growth.
Yes.
I like to look at it as evidence of growth. It means you're growing. You're actually making more of yourself. You're learning, you're getting better. It's
if you're not learning, you're stagnant. So like making mistakes along the way is what makes you better. And it's fun to like learn from mistakes when they're not like crippling that affect your cosplay. Like
amen to that.
Okay, all right.
Mistakes are fun, caveat.
2 more quick ones.
Yes.
Then so the next one is this one here. And sometimes you just gotta channel your inner Carrie and just yell "fuck you" as loud as you possibly can. Just throw up the, you know, she's.
In case I never word if you curse on stream, we got you.
Okay, but you do. Sometimes you just gotta say it, and you know, Mark Hamill has talked about that's how he always pictures Carrie, right? Is her flipping him off, and so it's just sort of like, you know, you gotta. And then the last one I have here is my Sith costume, which is inspired. This one was fun because I was able to take visual inspiration from Avatar: The Last Airbender and still have it be a Star Wars costume, because both of those universes are drawing very heavily on Asian and Asian martial arts, you know, some more directly than others. But I was able to get something that is Saber Guild approved as a Sith. But when you look at it, you can also see the Fire Nation influence very clearly.
You chose the best character too.
Yeah, I've also done full-on Zuko cosplays, but that's a different stream. We should do an Avatar costume stream. But anyway,
let's set it up. Yeah, take that note, Prime and Janae.
that's my I've got a bunch of other Star Wars costumes. Padme is always first in my heart and most special to me. But yeah, I like playing dress up.
And do we have Amber's photos? Or
We do. I'm staring
I
at
think
them.
you're in there.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Amber's photos make me like, oh, you take amazing photos.
Okay, so I want to like preemptively shout out to my husband, Mission Control Photography. Like, he started his journey as a photographer at the same time I started my journey as a cosplayer. So some of these photos are older than others, and I believe they're all except one from him. So there's a like initial like Rio costume, and then like the later one, and it's fun to see how he's grown as a photographer too. So
Right.
word to the wise, make friends with photographers.
Buy them
pay
spoil
them,
them, love them.
pay them,
Give them
and
snacks.
they will make you look beautiful.
Exactly. Give them snacks
Sometimes
and pay them
some
money.
photographers do it for fun, but if you can pay them, tip them, or do
Yeah.
whatever, do it.
They are as significant an artist as any cosplayer, and are due with the same amount of respect and care for their time.
And
effort
cosplay being a visual medium, the photographer is almost as important, I would say,
Exactly.
as the makeup that you've got on. You know,
Mhm.
like your costume can speak for itself, but if you do the makeup, you do the good photography, you do the good set pieces, like
Right.
it elevates that. And a lot of people are always like, a lot of beginning cosplayers are like, how do I get to that next level? And it's like, it's those small things that make the difference between a beginning cosplayer and then like a more established cosplayer.
And it's
your makeup and your setting and your photography.
Right. And it's good to have a working relationship with a photographer who you trust and you like working with.
Yeah.
Because when
And if you don't have the money to, self photography is a thing. One of my favorite cosplayers, Cosplay Bunny, she does a lot with self photography. So you can learn, you can add that to your skill set too.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I don't have to, because cameras piss me off. So it's very that he takes care of it. You can learn, like you can if you need
At least
to.
you can make TikToks if you suck at photography. It's like,
Yes.
oh, so you can't do fancy photo shoots, you don't have any friends. Get your cell phone and do a few fun TikToks. Like you can
TikTok is
start
really
sharing
easy
your
to
work in
start.
any way.
Good lighting, good sound, go, and you can have
Exactly.
so much fun. I had
Or
so much
Instagram
fun.
filters. Like there's magic to be had if you're still getting started. Like don't stop yourself from wanting to share your work just because you don't have a DSLR. Or you're worried about not looking as professional as like the other. Yeah.
If you look at my Instagram, it's all really terrible photography because I'm taking like selfies and like my own picture, and I'm not caring how the angle or the lighting looks. So I'm
You're
just like,
worse
hey,
than
look
your
at
own
this.
worst critic, because I think those photos look great. Like
Thanks.
we think our cell phone photos are garbage, but it's like phones are legit now. Like we take
my
some high
gosh.
quality photos on them.
We actually use my cell phone more often than we use my DSLR.
Yeah.
Cell phone cameras have gotten really good, especially in the past couple years. But
Not that it's good photographers. I'm just saying if you don't have that relationship, then that's a great source.
All right. So the first slide looks like this is my most
oh, Matt's in chat. He's like, me. Hi, Mission Control.
Love you, babe. Thank you for making me look so beautiful. So the first one is my, I'm gonna say iconic. It feels kind of like weird to be like, oh, this is my iconic costume. This is the costume that I started out and got serious with cosplay. It is a Twi'lek original character, or OC. She's a Mandalorian sniper, and so she is one of my favorite outfits. Because I love the way she looks, like with the blue and the black and the gold, like the color scheme is just like, yes,
it
thank
pops.
you.
It looks gorgeous. I'm such a fan.
Oh, good. Well, one of the things I love, and to kind of throw the clubs under the bus a little bit, is there's no one checking me as to whether or not like my outfit is good enough. Like,
right.
And we just
Glitter
did a
isn't
photo
canon in the
shoot.
Star Wars universe.
Yeah. And it's fun because like when I first rolled her out, I was doing black vinyl, and like these gatekeepers would be like, there's no black vinyl in Star Wars. And then like episode 7 rolled around and there was that girl in black vinyl, and I'm like, come at me, bro. Like, let's go. But yeah, I enjoy it because like I get to do a different version of her depending on how I feel. So this version is, I would consider her light armor or her standard armor. And everything I build with Rio, I build modular. So like the chest, the breast armor is separate from the jacket. I'm actually wearing that jacket right now with a different breast armor. The gauntlets are on spats so that I can take the gauntlets off and have nice sleeves underneath. The corset is a separate piece from the jacket. So like, this is a character I built so that I can wear her in whatever way I feel like. And
it's time for lunch, strip.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. You know, and like, one of my plans for celebration is this outfit, which really requires only minimal body paint. So if I want to wear her and then like strip down, I don't have.
Was that a cat?
Right. Yeah, he found the dog food can and knocked it off. Stop it.
It's free sound effects. It's just like Star Wars.
Right.
Little battle noises in the background.
I completely lost my train of thought too.
Sorry.
You were talking
modular costuming. You can take things off.
Yeah. So like, if like with body paint, it takes a while to put on and it takes a while to put off. So I like having that option of just doing a face paint. And one of the things I'm going to do for her is do a full bucket for her. So that way I can literally not have to face paint at all.
Bucket means helmet, in case people don't
know.
know.
Yes, this is a bucket. This means it's
like a bucket?
Yeah. Yeah. Visor, helmet.
Well, after Elden Ring, I try to be careful with people because sometimes a bucket is a bucket.
Yes.
Fair point.
Bucket Lord. But if you go to the next slide, this is probably the first time I wore Rio to a convention. And this photo I think was done by Tony Julius. So it's beautiful photography. Shout out to him. But like, this is where I started. And this is one of those things like when cosplayers like approach me or people who want to get into cosplay and they go, oh, I want to get into cosplay, but I'm just not as good as you. I'm like, we all started somewhere. And like, you know, like that outfit, the only things that I made on that outfit were the headband and that shoulder armor, which by the way, I still have that shoulder armor and that headband and I can wear both. And everything else is just off of Amazon or from the mall or something like that. So like when people are like, oh, I want to get into Star Wars costuming, but I don't have thousands of dollars to spend on a screen accurate costume, that's fair. But you can also just cosplay.
Closet cosplay is a thing.
Like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Bounding.
Yeah.
Bounding is a whole thing now.
I'm at Goodwill all the time. Like there's so many rogue characters you can make on like one Goodwill trip. It's so great.
You can be a Jedi with just some modification of like some like my first Jedi outfit was literally like a men's like oversized wool sweater that I cut up and I like glued it like the seams because I didn't even want to sew it and just layered it. Like so like when people are like, oh, I want to get into Star Wars costuming, but I don't know where to start. Like my suggestion is just go find pieces that you like and put them together.
Well, and budget friendly too. You can buy greebles, right? So like there's 1,000 Etsy shops out there that have little like Star Wars greebles all over the place. And so you buy some regular jackets and you just pump them up a little bit with these things that you can magnet on.
I'm wearing Zabrak horns right now. And I have people who do just like smugglers and they buy like these are $30, but like I have a $15 set. Like you just buy them and suddenly bam, now you're Star Warsy. Like it doesn't take a lot to get into Star Wars cosplay if you give it a try. Like just go. And like I love looking at that picture because I'm like, those Leku I bought from Pam, which shout out to Twi'lek Pam, her Leku are amazing. The body paint was water-based and I ended up sweating it off.
Oh no!
Yeah, oh God, like this.
It's so blue.
You can start to see it, but like I sweated it off so fast after that. And like even my makeup in that, like I don't do the full gold lip anymore because I've learned that in photography, it sometimes translates to, it looks like I'm going like this.
You got a banana in there.
Yeah.
So I used to do like gold wings too. And so until somebody had said, oh, I thought you had just like giant crazy eyes. And I was like, okay. not doing that anymore. So I was like, so yeah.
Well, you're right.
Hate the
but
feedback,
also,
like, thanks for telling me now after the con's over.
Right. Like I was like, oh, I used to do that for like every outfit. I did giant gold wings with her. It's good to know that for a year plus, there were people looking at my photos going, I thought you just had giant crazy eyes. So yeah. So like the moral of the story is we all start somewhere. Just start. Like just try.
just jump.
Yeah.
Jump into the frying pan. Do it.
Best panel.
And if your heart is set on one of Queen Amidala's gorgeous, amazing, complicated gowns, I mean, maybe start somewhere easier. And maybe if that's where your heart is, just go for it. And like, yeah, it's gonna be hard, but if that is what is gonna drive you and motivate you, then do what do what you want to do. Be who you want to be. Yeah.
There are some people who start with those $1,000 crazy hard cosplays and they just spend several years working on them, and that's fine. Like that, if that's what's rewarding to you, go for it. But if you don't want to do that, like you can get into Star Wars cosplay with just one or two like small additions, you know, to what
Your
you've
journey
already
is
got.
your journey. Exactly. Like when I did the cosplay calendar with guys for the first time, one guy's first cosplay was like Robin, and it was all cloth parts, and he made some and commissioned some. Another guy spent 3 years building a giant mech type suit. And I'm like, that's your first? He's like, it's my first. It was a lot of work and I learned a lot. And I'm like, both were fully legit, and they both were in the calendar because it showed the breadth of skills. Like, in terms of doing a first cosplay, just do whatever you want. Like, it's your journey.
Yeah. Identify what in the process is going to be most rewarding for you, and then embrace that, because there's going to be a lot about cosplay that you hate,
and it might change on the way too. Like, don't feel bad if you have to scrap.
Yeah, it evolves over time. Trust
me. Because some stuff I won't even make anymore, or ask Alan to make it. I'll just like commission it or budget.
Everyone is at a different point in their path, which is super important to remember. We're all at different stages of learning. We're all at different stages of a whole bunch of different stuff, and you never really know where someone's at on their path. So it's always good to approach that person with an open mind and open heart. You say, hey, where are you at? I'll meet you there.
And definitely don't point out flaws if you see them. Like if somebody had been to a con and been like, oh, this all looks terrible, that would have been, like
that is my
do that because they're jerks. But
that is my biggest pet peeve with Star Wars costumers. Don't point out why it's not approvable. Like that just,
or what's wrong with it from them, or this or that. Like, you're like, I'm just having fun.
Of our age, right? It's like you just don't say that. That's not polite, and it's not nice. It's like, unsolicited critique is never welcome.
Or don't compare a cosplayer to somebody else. Like anybody watching, like, oh, I love you, you're just so much better than this cosplayer. I'm like, you shut up. They're amazing too.
Our goal should ever only be to build other creators up. Honestly,
I don't like hearing that I'm the best Twi'lek cosplayer. I don't like that. That's not a compliment.
Don't diss my sisters and my brothers and my friends.
I know so many amazing Twi'lek cosplayers. Like, I'm not the best. Like, I don't like when people say things.
I had someone at DragonCon who was basically like, wow, your costume's amazing. I was like, thank you so much. You're really capable of doing this yourself too. And they're like, no, you already did it so well. I'm not going to do it now. I was like, thanks for the anti-compliment, I guess.
See, I always think it's particularly, and like, this feels arrogant to phrase it this way, but it is kind of how I think of it. When I'm wearing my resume, when I'm wearing something that I know is an impressive award-winning piece that is won in like high-level competitions, I think it's really, really important for me to compliment people, to be a good member of the cosplay community, and to go up to people, when you see somebody who's wearing something that looks like a thrift store cosplay, that looks like it's their, they look like they're a college student who's just put this together or something. I want to tell them how awesome they look. Like, I always want to build people up, no matter how, whether they're wearing something really, really impressive or not as impressive, or if it comes across as their first, or they're just showing up in whatever. Like, I want them to love this hobby. I want them to come have fun with it and keep doing it if they like it. And so I always am like, oh, I love your whoever, or you look awesome. I'm sorry, I don't recognize it. Is it from something? Because I'm not an anime. I do not know anime costumes, but I know cool things when I see them. So
like my husband, like, is that an anime? Because I have no idea what that is. But that's cool.
Will's usually asking me, he's like, do you know that character? And I'm like,
And I wear like a super niche anime. I wear skins from a game called Fate Grand Order. So it's like a mobile game based on an anime, which isn't even like a mainstream anime. So like I wear specific skins from that. And so when people are like, what are you from? I'm like, how much time do you have? Because
that's when your answer is, I'm from an anime.
Yeah. It's always that mental calculation of I'm an anime waifu, or I'm the third ascension variation of Saber Bride Nero
how deep?
From Grand Order, but like the third ascension, not the second ascension.
Just say, I'm from Genshin Impact.
Right? So like, yeah. So I get that, but okay, trucking on. Next slide is me as Ahsoka with one of my friends as Darth Vader, and the only thing that's photoshopped in that image is the lightsaber. He actually was behind me with the Darth Vader with a light on the wall behind us. And I love this photo because going back to like photography is important. This was taken in the hallway of my house. Like in like the bedroom, which is not a photo studio at all. It was just a blank wall. And so we put a red light on the blank wall and then used a selective flash to get me and like just enough of him.
Right.
So like, I love that image because it's the only Photoshop is the lightsaber. And I think that's really, really neat.
That's props. That's props. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Shout out, but
like, yeah, that looks awesome. So you got Jack's approval.
Oh, thank you. Next slide. So this is my Nautilin Mandalorian. Her name is Ori Shoshe, which is big waves, which is kind of a dumb name for a.
All Mando names are a little fudgy, so don't feel bad.
I haven't seen this is the reason why I haven't came up with my own like Mando name yet, is because I just been convinced that it's gonna sound so silly and ridiculous.
Ori means like big or growing, and then Shoshe means like waves in the ocean, so it's like big waves. I thought I was so clever because I'm like, I'm gonna make big waves with her. So
yeah, big waves behind you.
I love you.
I know
into this.
One of my Sith characters is legitimately named after one of my Phantom ships. So like, whatever.
What? Okay, what name is it?
So I ended up changing it slightly because I thought to myself, can I see myself introducing myself this way with a straight face? I'm like, no, I cannot. But if I move one letter, so my Fire Nation inspired Sith is named Zutar because I am Zutara, ride or die. And I was like, nope, we're just gonna go with it. So I just moved the A over. Yeah, so she's Zutar.
Star Wars costuming names, very, very serious. As serious. Myself and Tori can attest that very serious.
Look at the canon names; they're a blast too. Like.
Right, like, forgetting some of them, but yeah, this costume was literally a labor of love. Like there were so many points at which like I just wanted to like stop, and it was like a shout out. So this costume is both an indictment and a celebration of the costuming clubs. And let me explain.
Yes.
So when I joined the Mandos, I was doing my Twi'lek Rio, and I got some certain members who are not members anymore who referred to me as the sexy cosplayer. Like all I could do was do sexy cosplays. And yeah,
seriously.
So
cringy.
So when I decided to do a Mandalorian, I decided that I was going to do not the impossible, but I was going to build something no one else had built before. Like just as kind of a like FU to the people who are like, oh, she's a sexy cosplayer. I will say that once I got into it, I was like, this was a terrible idea. There's a reason no one's done this before. This is a lot.
I'm interested how you engineered that helmet, but holy hell, it's beautiful.
Okay. So there's a reason there are no other Nautilin Mandalorians, and it's because the freaking, like, it took me 2 years to do that goddamn headpiece, and it is like so, like, it is a lot of work to wear. And it probably took about $2,000 of like just my own personal money to make it and get it to where I wanted to go. But there were so many times where I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And it was the other Mandos in the club who were, you know, helping me and rooting for me, going, no, you know, we want to troop with you. We think this is great. Like every step of the way I was getting built up. So like, I look at this costume and it's such a mixed bag for me, because on one hand, it only exists because of jerks. On the other hand, it only exists because of people that I love dearly. So
it started from a hate, but it grew into love.
Yeah.
Right? The marketing person to me is like, it's a good thing.
It's a circle of support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Costume initially, but it became a celebration of all the other Mandos who helped me and rooted for me. And like the fur that I use for my belt is literally fur off of one of my other friend's kits. He was trying to trim his fur down, and I just took those pieces and I used them for myself. So like there's pieces of my other Mandos as part of it. And the grenade was made by one of my friends. The flares on my leg are from Alan. So like
I recognize it now. I'm like, oh yeah, he made those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're like, hey.
I had to move them to my boots though, because like they're solid.
How dare you?
They like pull down.
No, it's okay.
They're heavy.
Like little Star Wars things can be like weight heavy, and you gotta like. I've tweaked so many costumes because of them.
Yeah. So
Jetpacks are the bane of my existence for that reason.
Yeah.
Technical details about that costume is that it is a headpiece. I'm gonna pull this off because it's taped on right now.
Oh no, her face comes off.
No, this is like the layers to this costume. Is I have to put this on first, which is my eyeballs.
My eyeballs.
And then I have to put this on, and then the visor goes on top.
Oh my gosh.
But it's so cool, the engineer, and you figure it out bit by bit. Like I'm sure you like didn't immediately like dream of like, oh, here's exactly how I'm doing it. Like you had to problem solve it.
I had to get into it and start. Like I had my Nautilin initially, and the initial idea was I was going to make a mold of the Nautilin and then sculpt and then make a resin cast. But that turned out to be just a nightmare. So I ended up just making it out of Teraflex as like attached to the headpiece. So like it really was a trial and error. And this was about 2 years it took me to get from inception to approval. So, you know, it can be a slog, especially when you're doing a costume that's outside of your skill set, because this was outside of my skill set at the time. I'd never done a helmet. I'd never done anything like that. But reaching out to other people to help you, to listen, to bounce ideas off. I was in Alan's DMs constantly being like, how do I do this? And he'd be like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? So like if you are into something that's over like beyond your skill set, like reach out to people, ask people, like
people are there to get you to that place.
Yeah. So cosplayers love to talk about what they've done. Like,
oh gosh, yeah. There's a group on
talk about
Facebook for everything.
What?
No, I swear to God that every Star Wars character has their own separate like cosplay group on Facebook somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's a build group for almost every cosplay character out there.
Even though that funny guy with the ice cream machine, and now they sell the ice cream machine at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, like, that Camtono is just an ice. Yeah, right. And it went out of production for like years, and now all of a sudden, because everybody wants one, it's back in production.
Because they put it in the Mandalorian and tried to convince it was a computer storage device, and we're all like, it's an ice cream maker. His name is Will Hood.
Let Star Wars people have ice cream.
We know what kind of ice cream maker it was.
It doesn't look like very tasty ice cream. It's all silver. Why is it silver?
Listen, anyway, Mando likes mint chocolate chip. Don't shame him for his love of mint chocolate chip.
Yeah. And then last slide is Darth Talon, which this was a super easy costume for me to build at the point that I built it at, because by that point I'd like built so many things. Like the bra is just foam with Teraflex over top of it. the arm and leg pieces are literally just like bowed cintra. It's not even like a complex shape. And the challenge in that was both the body paint as well as the SFX.
People can't see you're in Arizona in the desert or New Mexico, wherever that is. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say the story of that photo is that I got heat stroke about 5 minutes after that photo.
Because I'm in Photoshop, you are in the dunes.
I was out in the dunes in Yuma. It was only 85 degrees or something like that, but with that headpiece on, because it's like thick foam and stuff like that.
Right? Was it like baking your brain?
Mm-hmm.
Like it?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, baking my brain.
Yeah. It's
talk about suffering for cosplay. This is what we deal with.
Like I'm really, really intrigued because I want to know all the things I'm getting myself into.
Yeah.
At least you're in Seattle.
This is it. And it's got latex on the outside and then foam on the inside to support it.
No. Right. For structure, because structure is important.
Yeah. So
that's like only 85 degrees.
Yeah. So it's 85 degrees with like all my head covered with like non-breathable material. And then vinyl doesn't breathe as well. So like the other parts of my body were, so yeah. Shout out to the Yuma Mandos who like half carried me into the car and blasted me with air conditioning.
I hope they poured water down your throat. Holy shit.
Yes.
Her Matt, her partner, came in chat. It's like 85 with no shade, no cover, just a bright sun and beating down on everyone in sight.
Oh my gosh, dehydration city.
And there was no breeze. It was completely still.
You're killing me right now.
So now I'm watching Star Wars and Mando again, and I'm like, how do you not die in the desert in that helmet?
Well, and you know, Kenobi's gonna come out on Friday, and we're all gonna be back in the desert.
You poor baby, get out of there.
Yeah,
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I love
it. We need a watch party. Let's grab cocktails and watch some cute Obi-Wan. Yes.
But yeah, be aware of your surroundings and don't heat stroke yourself for some photos out in the sand.
A really good point. If you're planning to make a costume for a con that's during a specific season of the year, say summer, winter, or otherwise, you may want to plan ahead for that.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't recommend wearing something with multiple layers, very heavy in hot weather.
Yeah. Or plan ahead, like we're doing. I've been in photo shoots where like 15 minutes, really quick, get it done, and then under a tree or back inside the con.
Exactly.
And we have handlers and help, just making sure it's as quick as possible to get those photos and get the hell out.
Dehydration is your biggest thing in cosplay. You will dehydrate like in a split second, and so keeping hydrated is super important.
Time says ice packs.
Please stay healthy. Please stay comfortable and healthy in your cosplays.
It goes back to the whole build your cosplay so that you can pee in it. Like so many cosplayers, and I've done it myself, where there's been certain cosplays I've literally glued myself into. So I'm like, okay, I'm just not eating or drinking, like because I can't pee.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I don't do it anymore.
Do it.
On the
like I borrowed my husband's Samurai Boba Fett costume for San Diego, my first San Diego con. I got an invite to stay with a friend for free. I ended up getting a free ticket. So I spent like 2 whole days without food or water because I thought, oh, this is such a pain to take off. I'm just going to eat when I get back. And on the last day, I fell off a bus and the costume cracked and I was bruised up and down. And that's when I learned, number 1, have a helper if you're in heavy armor. And number 2, always take care of yourself. Don't, like, you can suffer for cosplay to an extent, but make sure food, water, shower, do all the normal stuff too, and make sure to hydrate extra when you're wearing the costume and this and that. Like, it's easy to lose track taking care of yourself. So even do like phone alarms to remind yourself, hey, it's been 2 hours. Like, have even a sip of water, do something.
Take a break.
Yep, breaks.
I really love, I don't have any, but like little Cliff Bars makes what they call shot blocks, which are basically gummy bear, like they're like gummy bear type things, a little bigger, that have sugar and electrolytes.
Ooh,
and you
I'm
can just put one in, eat it. Yeah. BLOX shot blocks. And they're emergency, I think of them like emergency rations. They're almost always in my utility belt or my pocket or my purse. Because sometimes I'm like, I am wobbly, but it's another hour till I can leave. Okay, shove emergency food in space.
Because sometimes you don't have somebody here to give you a granola bar or help you out. Sometimes you have to like autopilot, throw something in there in 1 minute and keep going.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's pretty easy to stash a protein bar on your person in your cosplay. You know, like, yeah, right. Like, I have boob panels that are bigger than I am, and so there's a space.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, you know, right, keep things in your boobs.
Like, I built these to be an accurate size, but if I'm wearing a nice bra, most of the time I'm wearing a push or a sports bra, and they're empty.
Right?
So like,
There's nothing. These babies are hollow.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, okay, I'm just gonna hide a
channel. These babies are hollow,
right? Yeah. You can hear an echo when you pound on them. It's past my bedtime.
Oh my
Cosplay is not consent. Don't do that to anyone.
Right? Yeah.
Right, do that to yourself.
Even if they're your friends, you know, don't ask them to knock on your boobs. That's weird. Have them invite you to knock on their boobs.
Would you like to knock on my boobs?
Yeah, exactly. Ask politely. If there's somebody
Right?
close enough to ask them that, they'll be like,
I invite you to knock upon these.
You're
To
ready
knock
for
these
DoorDash.
knockers,
You're
if you
ready.
will.
I don't think there's not an awkward way to say that ever. So, you know, maybe don't. I don't. I've derailed us. I'm so sorry. Okay.
That's
anyway.
okay.
Star Wars
I'm like,
is
I
great.
don't know where to put my questions. I'm laughing so hard. God. Oh my God. I think we're actually at wrap. I feel so bad for the Twitch people because I'm like, it'll probably be an hour, the panel, and now we're 2 hours in. I just want to.
Right? Yeah. We're just sitting here shooting the shit.
It's
Honestly, as a cosplayer, when you become semi-popular in the community or more known, if that's your goal, you have a responsibility to everybody else to build everybody else up.
yeah.
You're now a representative of this community and you're a role model.
Agreed.
So, you know, take that on your shoulders as you will or will not. Your level of commitment to this is really all that determines that. So, but regardless, kindness always kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have my final question. Like, I want to ask some of my questions, but my final question will be, do you have any favorite online resources or stores that are like your go-tos for sending people to? If you're like, don't know where to start, like for me, it's like go to Reynolds Advanced Materials, not that my husband works there or anything, but you can get so many tips for starting with like resin and molding casting and other things. Are there places like that where you're like, they're always helpful, they're always willing to help, or groups, any of that go? I'm like, words, talk to me.
I mean, you still online, like.
So, I mean, there's thousands of resources out there.
Yeah.
We mentioned the costume groups on Facebook. There's almost a build group for almost every character out there.
Yeah.
Star Wars notwithstanding, there's a support group out there for other builders building the same thing you are, who might have different resources or things that you've not checked into or thought of, or like methods that you've never thought of that would be helpful to your build. There's also like every kind of sewing website I could recommend, like wawak.com, WAWAK is one of the best. Like
Wawak? Okay.
Wawak, yeah,
Cool.
it's a sewing, mostly like sewing and tailoring supply, but man, you can find everything you'll ever gonna need as far as closures and like sewing supplies and niche things that you normally otherwise couldn't find, like those little shirt protectors I was talking about earlier. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. Other cosplayers are always really good resources. So follow other cosplayers on social media and listen to what they have to say, because most of us like to talk about how we make stuff, and we're really feel good about ourselves when we figured out a problem or engineered something we think is really difficult. So we want to share that knowledge with you and are happy to. And sometimes all it takes is a question, and the worst answer you'll ever get is ghosting.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
kind of piggyback off of that, your goal is to get official. Join your local chapter of whatever club it is that you want to get official with. Like I said, with my Mando, there were so many times that I wanted to stop, but like the Mandos were there to help and to cheer me on. I know Mandos, I don't know how other clubs, other places handle it, but our local Mandos do build parties regularly where you can literally just show up and people will be like, okay, here's your pattern, here's what you need to do, this is what you're going to need to do next. Like the build parties I've been at, like we literally pick whichever newbie is in most need of help and we just build their armor. So like you can get a like substantial boost just from reaching out to the people in your area. And of course, it's a little bit more complicated right now with COVID and COVID precautions and stuff like that. But you know, as long as you're being safe and people are practicing safe gathering and stuff like that, like build groups and the like through your local clubs is the best way to start, because those are the people who've been through the process that you're trying to go through.
Yeah, without our local Rebel Legion, they helped Alan get through getting his pilot approved. There are a few things he just could not get solved on his own, and they just had the resources immediately when he reached out to them for help and got approved almost within the next month.
Yeah, I think my favorite resource that, or at least when I think of Star Wars costuming resources that aren't what all y'all already mentioned, because absolutely, I always go to the website, the Padawan's Guide, which is this beautiful collection of reference photos for mostly the prequels, not exclusively.
Oh, died, not D-Y-E-D, not D-I-E-D.
G-U-I-D-E.
Oh, guide. I thought you said died. Wow.
Sorry, guide.
I was like, that's dark.
I'm so sorry.
No, died.
Sometimes.
Just because it's a collection of reference photos, and it's, you know, photos from screenshots, exhibits, promo shots, like it breaks them down, and then it's, here's how other people have thought about building it. So it's somebody went through a museum and took all these photos from every single angle that they could and stuff like that. So that's my favorite reference. If you can get your hands on this costuming book, Dressing a Galaxy for Star Wars, it's out of print. It's my copy is not in good shape, but it was the best I could get. But again, beautiful reference photos, art books, anything like that are always really good. And just go back to your source material and look at what's it supposed to look like. And if you're doing an original design, then, you know, go wild. But if you're trying to copy, you know, either a Jedi, which even if you're doing an original character, there's still an aesthetic, or if you're trying to copy a specific costume, just go watch the movies or the TV shows or whatever, and just go back to the originals, the references, because that's, you know, take what you want out of it, leave behind what you want to leave behind, but then you'll have the spirit of it right, and then you can go from there.
That's one of the best and worst things about cosplay is there's no one single way of doing something.
No,
exactly.
There's one way that most people might do it, but then there's 1,000 ways to get to the same result. Like
that's you know, and that's just good for life. There are so many different ways to tackle problems, and that, you know, we're enriched by having a community that can think in all these different directions and be neurodivergent. And so, you know, I value our autistic, and, you know, attention.
We need a pen, artistic autistic.
Right. Yeah, artistic autistic. It's like my double. It's my AAA. So, you know, it's like, you know, we all have a certain, I don't know. We're all similar as artists when we join this. Like, we're all looking for similar things out of this hobby, whether it be artistic growth or just wanting to feel good. We're seeking confidence. We're seeking confidence in ourselves. We're seeking confidence in our abilities and our skills. And it's building that up together throughout the whole thing that is really what's at the core of all of this. But as far as resources, you always want to have a community around you. So even if you don't feel like really talking or reaching out to someone, just being a lurker in those groups can be incredibly valuable.
Make an extrovert friend who will carry you.
Oh God, yes. You just need that one friend who never talks, but until you get them into a crowd, and then they're like everybody's best friend, right? Like,
yeah.
A lot of people message me because it's trying to talk to my husband, and I'm like, why are you messaging me? He's right there. And they're like, could you be like the person who introduces us? And I'll do that for a lot of cosplayers. Like,
right? If you tell me I have a social job, I will attack it with alacrity. But until then, I'm not talking to anyone.
Yeah, because Tori's advice, just message people. Or I'm not sure if it was you or Heather, but just message people. The worst that can happen is that they'll ghost you. And it's so true. And it's a good segue to be like, you see us all on this panel, screenshot the screen. All their handles are here. Amber Brite Props, Tereshkova Costuming,
Sionnoch.
So close. Sionnoch. Okay. Sionnoch Studios.
I mean, there's whatever. Accents.
Next time.
Right.
And they're all like you saw on this panel, like we're all about love, sharing information, and helping people survive so that they don't have to go recreate all the mistakes that we all went through together. And I know there's probably lots of places to find you all, so I'd love if you can roundtable beyond your handles are their favorite contact points in case people want to reach out to you. And if they forget where to find you, they can always reach me at Pirate Reject and go.
Yep. Well, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and we have our website. So it's just .com, Instagram or Facebook. And you can reach out to us in any of those capacities, and we'll be happy to answer your questions or talk you through a project or whatever. Or just, say hello. Hi.
Yeah, you can find me Instagram or Facebook. I'm always happy to answer that. I'm on Twitter, Tereshkova 2001. That's not just cosplay stuff. It's also more sort of like whatever. So cosplay specific stuff, that's Instagram or Facebook. And if you message me and you want me to mail you some of my trading cards, I would happily do that. I have so many trading cards.
I want to hit you up for some.
1,000 or 500 each, and then I'm just like, please take them. So message me and I will send you mail. I always love talking about costumes. And you can find me at local conventions too. I do a lot of Seattle area cons, so find me there. And
we're always in Seattle in the Renton area, just doing all the stuff here.
Including GeekGirlCon.
Including GeekGirlCon.
And then I'm amberbrightprops.com is the website with the landing page, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. My Twitter is mostly like meme shit posting and stuff like that. Like,
isn't it everybody's?
Isn't it always? Mine is too. I'm like, I'm gonna be a serious Twitch person, and my feed's just like politics and memes.
Right?
Yeah. I would say I'm probably most responsive on Instagram because that goes both to me and my husband. So like one of us is likely to have spoons to answer. Then if you want just like thirst traps and stuff like that, my TikTok has a lot of Twi'lek thirst traps on it, so please enjoy that.
They're very beautiful too.
They're gorgeous.
I like that you do the pinups, but they're also gorgeous. Like that's why I love it. Now I get to do my fun Geek Girl maintenance wrap up before the Twitch team lets us know if we're gonna have some fun and raid somebody. But if you liked what you saw and you want to join us for more content, we have themed months. So this was the month of sci-fi, and the next month I believe is the month of exploration. It's like partly a pride theme, partly just a self-exploration or discovery theme. So you have some awesome panels coming up next month. Our team streams every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And our upcoming stream this Thursday, I'll be back. And if anybody within the stream wants to come back as well, we're playing a free terrifying game called Unfortunate Spaceman. I think it's like 4 people or multiple people, and one of you is like a traitor and tries to kill the others. So very Among Us vibes with like space people. So if you want to join us, let me know. We'll get you on board for that.
Spaceman. Sounds great. He sounds like he's floating in space with a knife in his bag.
I'm excited. I know nothing about the game other than that it's like there's a like Among Us, but like 3D and you walk around. So I'm very excited to see how horribly I die this Thursday. And on the 31st is a Terranium workshop, but I think it's like sci-fi themed. I'm pretty sure. I wish I had the notes on that, but I blanked. So if anybody in chat wants to correct me on that, that would be awesome. But we have panels all the time. There's going to be an outro slide with our upcoming panels. And if you join the GeekGirlCon mailing list, we'll also let you know monthly what panels are coming up for that entire month. So join our mailing list on our website before the end of this month, and you'll see everything coming up for the month of exploration. And just, thank you all for joining me. This was a freaking amazing panel, and I'm so delighted that I was able to just spend this evening with you all.
Yay. Thank you for having us.
Me.
Yeah.
Oh, planetarium terraniums. That's what it was. My brain's like, what was the other word? Listen.
It's late and I need some wine.
Right?
I gotta go finish packing for celebration. I leave bright and early tomorrow. So
have fun. Number 2. Yeah.
I'm
I'm so jealous. I wish I were there with you guys, but I know you guys will enjoy it. And
now we can follow like their Instagrams and like stalk them throughout all their awesome
Yeah,
posts.
we'll have to. I got to meet you briefly at Emerald City, Amber, so I'll have to see if we can run into each other again at Celebration.
I would love that. That's awesome.
Are you coming to this Emerald City, Amber?
I am hoping so. It's a little the dog situation is a little complicated. He's the high maintenance and stuff like that. So it'll depend on the dog situation. But
I hope I get to see you sooner than later.
Me too.
Thank you all again, chat. I'm going to let you all know when we're officially off so we can like grab drinks really quick. No. So thank you so much, Twitch team, and let me know when we're ready to sign off, and we will peace out and have an amazing night. Thank you all so much. Now we're going to like parade wave until we're like officially signed off. Yay.